Hello everybody. Welcome and thank you all for joining the TÜV complimentary webinar titled Live TISAX Q&A Session with TÜV experts. Our experts today are David, our Business Assurance Sales Manager from TÜV America, and Nils, presenting the President of Syngenity Incorporated, Senior Consultant Information Security. Before we begin the presentation today, we have a few housekeeping rules. If you or someone you know are having connection issues, please connect through a landline instead of Wi-Fi if available for better connectivity. Also, please view this webinar through the recommended browsers of Chrome, Edge, or Firefox if available. For this session today, your cameras and microphones are set to be open and on. By leaving your camera on and your microphone on, you are agreeing to be recorded in today's session. If you do not agree to be part of this recorded session, you're welcome to turn off your camera and microphone. Also, while we're presenting, please be sure to mute your mic if you are experiencing background noise. This is meant to be an interactive session, so please raise your hand and ask your questions at any time. There's also a Q&A tab that you can submit your questions through, as well as an audience chat. Feel free to use both. Your video camera is set to on. However, if you need to step away, please turn your camera or video off. There is a short survey regarding your session today. Please stay on for a few minutes to answer these survey questions when we are complete. We truly appreciate your comments and your feedback. Now, let me go ahead and introduce TÜV for our session today. TÜV is a world renowned in providing international testing assessment, training, and certification services for over 160 years, with offices in over 1,000 locations and in 50 countries, and represented by approximately 30,000 employees. As a global leader in management system certification, validation, and verification audits, TÜV's extensive industry experience and expertise elevate the management systems of our clients through our unique approach towards audits. TÜV assists companies of all sizes with a tailored audit approach specific to your company's size and industry. We can support you in various ISO-based management systems, standards, sustainability, cybersecurity, as well as customized audit solutions, and of course, assisting your company with TISAX. If you are looking for a trusted, globally recognized provider that is responsive to assist with your company's transformation and certification needs, TÜV is your partner. And a little more about today's session. During today's interactive session with our TISAX experts, David and Nils will provide an overview of the Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange certification process for the automotive industry. They will share the best practices and address your specific queries. Whether you're just starting your TISAX journey or looking to enhance your existing knowledge, this session is designed to help you achieve your certification goals. And now I would like to turn it over to Nils and Dave. Thank you for today's interactive session and welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, Renata. I'm going to introduce myself real quick and Syngenity as a company, and then I would like to open the mics to all of you to ask questions regarding TISAX, and we're confident that we can answer all of them. So Syngenity basically was founded by TISAX, our former customer, my old company, in this case BMW, reached out to us in 2017. They requested us to do TISAX or to implement TISAX for the first time. So we were one of the pilot vendors to that, and that worked out pretty well. So that other partners reached out to us if we can help them to implement it. And since 2019, we are mostly implementing TISAX, doing internal audits, and also doing certification audits for the TÜV. We are a global partner for TÜV in mostly the regions Europe and the US. We have 40 people and 15 auditors for TISAX. I myself am in the information security industry since roughly 2003 now, working for BMW in the US, Audi in the US, and also for Mercedes globally. I'm a TISAX lead implementer, and I'm also the CEO and president of Syngenity Inc., residing in Atlanta. So who wants to be the brave one and ask the first question? anything you want to know about TISAX, feel free to ask.
One more thing before we jump into Q&A. I don't know if everyone got the initial memo, but this is a coffee break session. So hopefully everyone brought their coffee to the team. I think this is my third cup of the day, but I'm sure some of you might beat me out there. But thanks everyone for joining again. We wanted to put this on to be like a little less formal than our traditional webinars and give people, attendees, a chance to just openly ask questions about this standard, as we are seeing a tremendous growth, particularly in the US market over the past couple of years with TISAX, but it's still relatively new. Like compared to any other ISO standard that's out there that has many more years of experience behind it, TISAX is still relatively new to the US market, but it's being pushed by a lot of automotive OEM tier 1s and tier 2s. So a lot of companies and organizations are getting asked for TISAX or to be TISAX certified for the first time. So we know there's a lot of questions outside of this, and considering that we're receiving a lot of them now, we thought it would be a good chance to kind of have a little bit more of an interactive session with everyone and kind of open it up to spread the word and help answer questions at the same time.
Yeah, that's true, Dave. Just to pick up on that, so BMW, Mercedes, and Volkswagen are doing that since 2017 already. Daimler Truck North America and PACCAR, so commercial vehicles, asked their vendors to implement TISAX by mid of next year. And we see Ford and GM also starting requesting TISAX labels from the vendors.
Great. Real quick, it looks like Walter's got a question for us.
That was a mistake.
That's okay, Walter. Thank you. If you guys are ready, I do have some questions that have come in. If you would like to take this.
Sure.
Great. Okay. It says, thank you, Dave, and everyone today for your time. I wanted to thank you all the participants. Oh, wait, just kidding. That's not the question. Okay. Oh, here we go. Can you summarize the main difference between ISO 27001 and TISAX certifications?
Yes, we can. I'm jumping to the slides that we previously used so you can get a feeling on the differences. So what the main difference in terms of content is that TISAX has a little bit stricter requirements on how to implement things, and it's aiming more onto physical security, prototype security, and data protection, as well as the operational IT security. So when you talk about BCM, they have way stricter rules, also multi-factor authentication. Here is ISO a little bit more vague. But the good thing about TISAX here is that the requirements are more clear to you, so you know better what you need to implement, and the ISO is more open. Biggest advantage of the ISO is that it's more common, and also you can define your scope on your own. You can say you don't want to certify operations, you just want to do development, you certify certain departments and certain not. And for TISAX, you need to certify the whole location at its entirety.
Yep, and the audit approach differs greatly between TISAX and 27001. So for example, TISAX, you're audited one time in a 3-year time period based on in comparison to ISO 27001, you're audited every year, at least annually. Now, as you'll know, going through the TISAX requirements, it references ISO 27001 in many of the areas as far as what's requirements or what other requirement should I look at meeting to help me get to this TISAX requirement. So there's a potential possibility in the future that TISAX will adopt some sort of annual approach, but as of right now, we only audit you one time in a 3-year time period, and the TISAX label is valid for the following 2 years unless there's a change in objectives or you're adding another location. We won't audit you in years 2 and 3. TISAX AL2 is a plausibility check that's done completely remote in comparison to AL3's on site. But when you look at it versus ISO 27001, it's a much limited audit approach with a plausibility check for AL2 and then a traditional ISO audit with ISO 27001. And then, of course, there's cost difference. The cost difference for TISAX certification compared to 27001, on a whole, TISAX is much less expensive because of the audit time requirements for sites, from small companies to large companies. Single site headcount plays a role, but it does not play as large of a role as it does with traditional ISO standards. It's more based on those objectives. So the cost is significantly less in comparison, TISAX versus 27001.
I think we have the first questions, right? Wolfram has a question and John has also a question.
Yes.
I don't know who was first. I think John was first. So John asked, I've read you can combine and perform an internal IATF 16949 audit alongside with an internal TISAX audit. How difficult would this be, and what would be your concerns with this method? So, I mean, IATF and TISAX are mostly not really comparable, since one is quality management and the other one is information security. If you have an integrated management system, you can, of course, do an internal audit and cover both of them, like the processes, quality management, document control, and risk management is very, very similar. So you can basically create efficiencies there and extend it for another day in order to check the TISAX controls as well.
Yeah, and traditionally, when it comes to auditing, IATF versus TISAX, IATF has very strict requirements in terms of timeframes, when the audits need to be conducted, when you need to submit information from, and the auditors becoming certified for it, where TISAX is definitely more flexible in terms of timeframes and requirements for documentation upload. So the two auditors are not going to be the same, since TISAX is more focused on information security, where an IATF auditor is focused on quality management systems for automotive.
Great.
Yeah, but for internal audit, you can definitely do that, and you save a little bit of effort.
Perfect. Okay, looks like we have another question from Wolfram. Do you guys want, I can read it for you. It says, how would you handle TISAX implementation of a location that's bound by existing global ISO 27001 and 9001 and other overlapping standards that don't fully comply with TISAX?
So, I mean, as a consultant, I always have to say it depends. But how will we approach it? So usually, it's always good if your location that has to have TISAX is already in the 27001 and 9001 scope. I would add it on top of it to reuse most things. So ISO and TISAX have a lot of similarities. I would say 75 to 80% can be reused, and you upgrade your location on top of the 27001. 9001 is a little bit different again, since it's quality management. You cannot reuse a lot. So what can be reused is definitely risk management and document control, also the processes that have been defined there. But 27001 has a lot of similarities, so we would add it on top and then certify only that location. And probably you would start with the gap analysis to see what gap you have from your existing management system towards TISAX, and then implement those gaps. What usually is, I don't know where your headquarters sits. If it's in a different country, you definitely have differences in supplier management. You have differences obviously in HR, compliance, and data privacy. But IT should be very similar.
Great. Okay. I've got another question.
Does that answer the question? Or is there a follow-up to that?
He's got a clarification. So it says to clarify, the parent company would not yet have TISAX implemented.
Yeah, I saw that. So that should not be a problem. So you define your scope for that location you want to certify, create that scope excerpt, and basically build an upgrade of the existing management system for TISAX on top. Delta implementation, if you want to say so.
Perfect. Okay. So I've got another question for you. Which standard is more popular in the Americas, ISO 27001 or TISAX certification?
ISO 27001 is a general purpose standard for any organization seeking informational security, where TISAX is purely based on the automotive supply chain, prototype protection. In comparison of the two, ISO 27001 has been around a lot longer, since the mid-90s, where TISAX has kind of come into the market in 2017, but it was primarily based in Europe, came from Germany. But the last couple years, 23, 24, we have noticed a significant uptick in TISAX requests as it relates to the US market. But in comparison, 27001 is more of a globally recognized standard. But TISAX, if you're in the automotive space, it's going to become a requirement. So we see TISAX growing quite a bit over the next few years.
Great. Let's see here. I've got another one for you. What are the approximate costs for a TISAX certification?
Well, this depends on the objectives and assessment levels, and of course, the number of locations. But if I had to give like a single site estimate for rough numbers, I would say in assessment level 2, you're looking at somewhere around 5,000 to 7,000. That's first year. As I mentioned earlier, we only have to audit you for the first year. AL3, I would say roughly between 6,000 to 10,000 plus travel expenses, because AL3 does require an on-site audit as well. But for a single site location, that would pretty much be your range that you're looking at. And from the implementation side of things, Nils, I don't know if you want to comment.
Yeah, it also depends very much on the assessment objectives. So if you have like prototype security, it's more costly. But roughly, if you want to set it properly, to use it after 3 years, it's between 25 and 55,000 for a single location, depending on, again, as I said, on the assessment objectives. So if you have like data privacy, in addition to that, if you have very high confidentiality or very high availability, that's a little bit of a different story, but roughly in that realm.
Great, thank you. Looks like we have a question coming in from the audience. I've got Tammy here's live with us, and she said, do you find that organizations will accept an ISO 27001 in lieu of a TISAX certification?
Not in the automotive industry. So we had clients which were in the process of introducing a 27001, and then they reached out to the OEM and said, hey, we're in the middle of certification. Can you move that? That can happen, definitely. And in other industries, they start accepting TISAX instead of 27001, but I've not seen an automotive OEM saying, hey, 27001 is okay. Except I think Nissan did that once.
The good thing though, is if you're already on the path of 27,001, you'll notice by looking at the requirements for TISAX is you're more than halfway there. So the lift is pretty much already done.
Yep, I agree. It's basically a Delta implementation of the additional requirements, and that can be done easily within 3 months.
Perfect. Okay, so it looks like we've got Nick joining us as well. He says, hello, I'm brand new in this world of ISO 27000 and TISAX certification. Where do I begin? Can you outline the steps necessary for both our internal teams and third-party certification?
On the TISAX side of things, this organization is very helpful in getting you started with the process. There's no real standards to purchase like with any other ISO standards where you have to go purchase a copy of the standard that might have another reference of a copy of a standard to then purchase as well. But if you go on the ENX website, just go to Google or whatever browser you use and type TISAX ENX, you'll go to the main page. The download section is where you want to start with TISAX. Participant handbook is going to be the main PDF, and that is a very well thought out and written guide to TISAX certification. It will explain the whole process to you, the expectations from initial registering on the website to third-party certification. And then the other document that I would recommend looking at is the ISA document. That's going to be your Excel document. That's going to break down the requirements. So it'll give you your shoulds and your shalls. And next to each one of those, it will reference another appropriate standard. Here's how to get more guidance on how to meet this requirement. So it's very helpful in the initial preparation phases for TISAX. But I have worked with a number of clients who, like you, Nick, said, that I'm completely new to this space, and this is very helpful. But based on our current workload and time constraints, and then I have this client saying I need to be TISAX certified by this date, I just don't have the capacity or bandwidth. And those circumstances will introduce like a consultant who can help really fast track that and really, take your hand and help you create that system from scratch.
Yeah, it's also, I would say, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong here, most of our clients and most of people introducing TISAX were asked or forced by the OEM to do so. And once you have that request, you need to put thoughts into what you need to do. Like, do you need to have the 2701? Do you need to have TISAX? And what do you want to do? So how your ISMS should look like in the end. Because you can go for the minimum, but you can also go for, and this is usually our approach, what makes sense to the company. So what do we want to implement? Where do we want to be more secure in terms of, for example, business continuity in a production environment? And where do we want to do a little less? So this is basically the starting point to say, hey, this is the scope we want to pursue. And once you know your scope, I can give you an example slide here. A project usually takes 6 to 9 months for a single location. You define all of the participants, which is usually compliance, data privacy, HR, a little bit of management, a lot of IT, and a lot of information security officer, and supplier management. And then you set up your whole documentation. So you need to create the policies in the end. So what do you require for your company to do? For example, password policy, we want to have like 8 characters with a special character, and then you do that for all of the topics, and then you basically roll it out, implement everything that you define here. You do an on-site inspection, since physical security is also an important point here. You need to do a vulnerability scan, train your employees, then you usually conduct an internal audit, create the KPIs, the management review, and then you're well prepared for a final audit. That can be a path.
And then on the certification side of things, when it comes to TISAX, It's in 2 stages, similar to ISO. You know, you have a stage 1 and stage 2, where TISAX is you have a kickoff and then you have the assessment. Now, the kickoff with TISAX is more of an intro and establishment of client expectations. So the auditor is going to say, here's what to expect from the assessment. Here's what I'm going to want to see. Here are the documents that I require. So it's a very short, remote-based kickoff, you know, only for a few hours, like maybe 4 hours tops, all depending on Q&A. And then the assessment itself, which typically occurs about 30 days from that kickoff, that's when the auditor is either doing that plausibility check or they're auditing the process, coming on site, verifying that your objectives are meeting the intent of the standard and the system is working as it should.
What's also a little bit different within TISAX compared to other frameworks is that you have conformities or non-conformities, and you also have a maturity level that's getting measured. You need to have a certain maturity level in order to pass the audit. So you need 2.1 for a preliminary label, and you need to have a minimum 2.7 for a final label that needs to be achieved.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, Nils, as you can have a temporary label issued following your TISAX assessment if you have any open nonconformances based on that point score, where that's different for ISO 27001. All of those nonconformances need to pretty much be responded to and closed out before the certificate can be issued. But you can, with TISAX, you can receive a temporary label for up to 9 months before the official label is sent. Now, that doesn't extend the time of the TISAX label greater than 3 years, still within that 3-year time period, but it gives you the flexibility of getting the label in place faster than having to wait for it. And the reasons why they give that temporary label such a long period of time is sometimes those implementations, the responses to those non-NCs can take some time to fully implement, whether you need like a physical security put in place that you didn't have before, and you need to look at different vendors or different products to meet that intent. They give you some time with the temporary label.
Okay, great.
Let me add something real quick, talking about flexibility. So, I mean, things can change. You all know that. And then you have another customer jumping onto the train and requiring a different assessment objective or level. So what's always possible is until the day of the kickoff of the audit, you can change the scope, like add a location, change the objectives. That is always possible. And then in the kickoff, the auditor asks you, is that the scope you want to certify? And then you can say no. And then usually the TÜV Süd auditor is going to revise that in the ENX platform with his access, updates it, and then you're good to go. So it's very flexible to react on potential new requirements.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Building kind of off of what you guys have just discussed, we've got another question, and it says, how long is the TISAX certification valid in the Americas before recertification is needed?
Well, labels are valid for a period of 3 years. A company is only required to be audited by a third party like TÜV Süd once in that 3-year cycle, and that's the first year. So then after that 3-year time period is completed, we would come in and basically do that same process over again with the kickoff and the assessment, and then your label is valid for another 3 years. But each year, you're still going to want to conduct an internal audit and management review.
Important here is that the internal audit needs to be conducted by someone who can be an auditor. So it doesn't need to be an official auditor, but they need to have the experience to audit TISAX, and this is going to be asked in the audit as well. But you can do it on your own.
Okay, good answer. Let's see. Okay, how would you summarize the main benefits of a TISAX certification?
Well, most companies are pursuing TISAX as it's a requirement from their automotive customer. If the company doesn't have certification, then business will decrease with that customer. So it's a requirement to get that label. So that's, I would say, the biggest benefit is meeting that customer's expectations right there. The next category would be a company who's being a little bit more proactive and maybe pursuing the automotive market. And as a result, they're going to use TISAX as kind of their leg up compared to their competitors. So they'll look at implementing it first and realizing that a lot of OEMs are now requiring TISAX. They can showcase that compared to their competition.
The good thing is also when you start, if you have no information security management system, and when you start, the process with TISAX is more cost efficient and a little bit easier to handle, since the requirements are more firm and stricter, so you don't have room for interpretation. The ISO is, as I said in the beginning, the ISO is a little bit vague here, and often you sit in front of a control and you don't know how to interpret it. And for TISAX, it's more self-explanatory.
Yep. And another benefit too is, we talked a little bit about this earlier. A lot of the TISAX requirements stem from ISO 27001. So it works both ways. If you have 27001 first or TISAX first, if you have TISAX first, then it prepares you for 27001 in the future. So if you do receive that request from some of your non-automotive customers, you do have some of the framework already in place.
Yeah, and I know most of you guys are doing that since you were forced to do so, but keep in mind to try to establish a proper information security management system for the company and not necessarily only fulfill certain rules. So it needs to fit to you and it needs to be adapted to you, and then you easily pass 27001 and TISAX. That is no problem in the end anymore.
Great. Okay. You guys ready for another one?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. What happens if I have changes after I've registered with ENX?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before. So if you want to change something, as I said, you can do that up to the kickoff of the audit. Either the auditor does it for you, or you go into the ENX platform and change the scope or the assessment levels on your own. You just need to implement it accordingly and let the auditors know.
Yep, and it usually requires some sort of verification from ENX. So you'll want to send them an email or notify them of these changes as well, and just forward us their response. And then that's the verification we need. We don't need a new scope excerpt as a result, as long as we get that ENX acknowledgement.
Great. Looks like we had another one from the audience come in, building off of Wolfram's. Have you come across any cybersecurity insurance benefits from being TISAX labeled, like reduced insurance premiums or simplified acceptance of coverage?
Yes, that's the easy short answer. So whenever you provide your cybersecurity insurance an official label like TISAX or 27001, you can basically ask them to reduce the premiums. I've seen that before.
Great. Dave, anything to add on that one, or are we ready to move on?
Nils is spot on it.
Perfect. Okay, here we go. I've heard many certification bodies do not have AL3 auditors in the States. Is that the same for TÜV-SÜD?
No, that is not the same for TÜV-SÜD. We indeed do have local TISAX auditors, AL3 auditors in the States. So that is actually pretty common with other CBs, as we mentioned earlier. Since it originated over in Germany, and that's where the market was initially in 2017, that's where the big push was to have auditors and resources. But as I mentioned earlier, for the past couple of years, that requirement, TISAX requirement, has been pushed down the supply chain and is affecting the U.S. market. And as a result, we have been very quick to ramp up our auditor team to look at meeting the demand. So TISAX is one of the few CBs that does have local sales and local auditors in the U.S.
Great. Here we go. Here's another one. How do I find out what assessment levels and assessment objectives I need to fulfill?
Well, ideally, your client is going to be your guide here. So they're going to tell you, here's the objectives that I need. And I always suggest that you reach back to the client. So sometimes clients, based on experience, sometimes clients will say, I need you to become TISAX certified. And the person requesting it is in purchasing, and they'll just say, I want you to be AL3 because AL3 is the highest level. And it doesn't really fit your business model. Like maybe you don't have any prototypes, you're just a software provider, and it's really just like the information security you're going after. So I always ask clients to re-verify with their customer requiring TISAX what objectives are actually required of me, and just to make sure that we're starting out on the right foot, because we have started the process and clients have achieved their TISAX label, and then the customer said, no, I actually need you to have this objective. So it's always best to verify that with your client, and the opposite side as well. A client has said, and you need to become TISAX certified, and once the customer the customer looks at TISAX for the first time, they see an assessment level 2 is a little bit less work and lower costs associated with it. So they move forward with TISAX level 2 right from the beginning, and then find out later that they should have become TISAX level 3.
What we've also seen, unfortunately, with a couple of OEMs, and I don't want to mention any names, they request TISAX and say, hey, you need to figure it out. And then we did try to get back to them and ask them specifically what they want, especially when it comes to the assessment levels. Since it's a little bit complicated, they said, hey, you need to do TISAX, figure it out. What we usually do is we do an assessment together with our clients to identify what really makes sense to them. AL3 is always a good base to implement. That is always accepted, and you can add certain objectives on top of that. So let's say you already have assessment level 3 certified, and now someone comes up and says, hey, you need to do auto parts. You can add that on top. If you have AL2, you cannot. Here, there's a good rule to mention. Whenever you have direct production towards your OEM, they usually request AL3. If you have supporting sites or supporting locations, then AL2 is also okay.
And
but it can be tricky because if they say you have to have very high availability, it's automatically AL3. Then we are in the switch of a catalog between the 5 VDA ISA 5 catalog to 6 that came out last year, and the old versions here, Info High, if you can see that on top, and Info Very High are gone, and it's split up into very high availability and strictly confidential as well. So if you're not sure, try to find someone who can answer your questions. It can be an auditor, it can be a consultant. Sorry, Dave, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, no problem. I just wanted to go back to your previous slide where it had 2.5 assessment level. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit further as a good option for clients who are currently looking at AL2, but there could be assessment level 3 objectives coming in the future.
Yeah, 2.5 was the indecisive version. They got created due to COVID. Where it was not possible to conduct AL3 audits. 2.5 means you prepare everything for AL2, and then after you have the certification, you can go ahead and request an auditor or send an auditor to that location for only 1 day, for an additional day, and then make AL3 out of it. But in comparison of efforts for your company, it's nearly the same as AL3. So I would, if you can, always go for AL3 right away. For me, in my world, it's either 2 or 3. 2.5 makes no sense.
Perfect. Okay. Another question coming in. What companies require TISAX and what OEMs request this as of today?
So I think I said it in the beginning. BMW, Mercedes Group, Volkswagen Group are doing that since 2017. DTNA, so Daimler Truck North America and PACCAR, they rolled it out last year. You need to be certified by June 2026. And Stellantis, GM, and Ford are rolling it out this year and next year, and they are aiming for end of 2026 so far. So we're starting. We started 3 projects this month. All Ford required TISAX labels.
Perfect.
So it's gonna come. It's gonna come eventually. And if you want to work with European OEMs, you need to have it anyway in the automotive industry.
Yep, and it's interesting now that the American market is adopting it as well with GM and Ford. There was some previous talk about them coming up with their own standard and pushing out that would be like kind of comparable to TISAX, but they've just started to adopt it as it met a lot of their requirements, and it's easier on their supplier base than to add another standard that they have to meet.
Perfect. Looks like Daniel has a question for us. He says, I am an ISO 27001 lead auditor. What steps do I have to take to become a TISAX auditor?
Oh, you already have a good base. Still, the ENX is very firm about the requirements of the auditors, so you need to basically do 20 days of trainee audits.
Okay.
I know the answer is short, but there's not much to that. It's pretty similar to 2701, but you need those trainee days. And then it depends if you are accredited with ANAP or DAX or whatever accreditation firm that is. So they accept some a little bit better and some not so good.
Awesome.
And
Great answer.
this is actually common for us as well to upscale some of our 27001 auditors to be TISAX auditors as well. So that's primarily where our TISAX auditor pool is coming from, is auditors who are currently auditing for 27001 and then adding that TISAX component.
That has also the advantage that you can do a combination audit of 2701 and TISAX at the same time, and then it's again more cost efficient, especially on the company side, because you don't need to do 2 audits and get everyone into a room and brief them and prepare them. You just do it one single time per year and that's it.
Perfect. Okay. I've got another question for you here. It says, how do I exactly know how to interpret the controls of TISAX?
Well, I'd say the ISA 6 catalog, that Excel document that I mentioned in the ENX download sections, will precisely tell you what to implement, your shoulds, your shalls, and it'll give you reference standards. So that is going to be your main guide. And then you can also utilize a consultant if needed to help make things a little bit more clearer, or to really ramp up the speed in which you implement. But Nils, did you have more comments on that?
Yeah, the thing is, although TISAX is a little bit more firm when it comes to the requirements, it's still vague, and I can only tell you that going through a couple of hundred audits, I saw a lot and how people did it, and also how auditors accepted things. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, in prototyping, there's a requirement that you need to have separation. Let's say Mercedes gives you a prototype and BMW gives a prototype at the same time. They cannot be in the same prototype room. That's the rule. But doing a couple of audits and trying things out, we found out that like a cage would be enough to fulfill that control instead of building a new prototype. And those things you only find out if you like go through this 100 times. Also, like splitting up production lines. We had an incident with an auditor. We provided services for an auto glass company, one of the biggest ones, and they had production lines next to each other for auto glass, one for Volkswagen and one for Mercedes. And then the auditor came in and said, hey, this is not separated. And then we said, hey, the auditor, it's kind of complicated to build another production line next to this one since we don't have any space. So what can we do? And then we basically built walls in between the production lines, like mobile walls, and then it was also okay. So I can only tell you that you need to have a little bit of experience in terms of how to iterate them, and that also gives you the opportunity to save costs in the end and don't do full-blown TISAX implementation, work with risk management and say, hey, there's no legitimate business reason to implement certain things, like a new physical security system for your doors, those kind of things, and work with risk management and say, hey, this is something we want to pursue in 3 years and document it as a risk. So if it's getting complex, I can only recommend to at least have a consulting company go and do an internal audit, and then they can tell you what you can do and what you cannot do.
Perfect. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and encourage the audience. If you guys have any other questions, it looks like we have answered everything that has been submitted. Anything else to add, Nils or Dave, before we wrap things up?
Yeah, 2 things I would like to add, and give me a sec. I'm going to move to that slide. So for TISAX, I highly recommend, as I said a minute ago, use risk management. You don't need to implement everything that's in the catalog as long as you have a legitimate reason not to do so. It should be adapted to your company's size and your complexity. It needs to fit to you. It makes no sense to just like check the boxes and add a SIEM and here and another security alarm system there. Make sure that it fits to you. Also, it's mostly common to think about what you want to measure in terms of policies first before you implement it. So think of what you want to achieve with that management system and what you want to achieve in terms of your policies, and then implement it. And of course, I highly recommend to do a vulnerability scan and an internal audit before you go into the audit. Otherwise, you have major non-compliances. And in the end, don't underestimate the time and the resources on your side, because if you want to do it properly, you need to dedicate a little bit of time to it. So someone external cannot come in and build up a management system for your company without knowing your processes and without getting the feedback that they need to. Basically, if you engage a consultant, you need to calculate the same time internally to achieve a proper management system. And in the end, I want to highlight the last slide in terms of training. So we are conducting also assessment foundation trainings and introduction trainings for TISAX. If anyone is interested, feel free to reach out to Dave and the colleagues to get more information about that. Also to me, myself, via LinkedIn or through the website, I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, we also have a plethora of TISAX related information and past webinars that we've done on our website. So if you wanted to view any of those to get even additional information from that we didn't discuss here, but on preparing for TISAX or from an auditor standpoint, feel free to check out our main website, because there's TISA does publish a lot of very useful information as a knowledge provider. But for TISAX especially, we've had a past couple webinars, white papers. We'll have an FAQ that goes out as a result of this So we're here to help guide you along the way and hopefully be your partner of choice when it comes to certification.
Yeah, and if anyone has further questions, feel free to use the time we're here. We can answer hopefully everything. And yes, I think this is going to be recorded anyway, so you will get the link and you have access to everything that we talked about, including the slides. Those slides were from a webinar previous to this one. You can look at that as well, and our colleagues talked about everything that you need to know in order to go through that process. But we can resend it, right, Renata? We can send it to the participants.
Yes, of course. Okay, well, I think that kind of concludes everything. I want to thank you, Dave. Thank you, Nils, for your time today. And I want to thank all of our participants. We had some great questions come in. As we stated earlier, just a reminder, this recording will be available soon if you or your colleagues have missed any portion of today's session. Also, be sure to check out the TÜV-SÜD TISAX related academy training we previously have on the screen here. And don't forget to stay on and complete our short survey after this. We are looking forward to your feedback and appreciate your time. Please feel free to visit our website at www.tubesud.com to learn more about TISAX Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange. If no one has any other questions, thank you all again, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.